Greetings, everyone. I'm Gail Macinda. Welcome back to History Heights. Today, we're going to take a quick look at the growth of amusement parks in the United States and spend a few moments in a place that's very special to me and many others. Throughout history, people have enjoyed getting together for celebrations and carnivals. When those gatherings included food, entertainment, games of skill and chance, we have the earliest forms of what eventually became known as an amusement park. First came festivals with traveling carnivals. Then, as early as the 1550s, permanent, elaborate gardens called pleasure gardens were built in Europe. In the mid 1700s, the first pleasure gardens opened in the United States. Although some of the early pleasure gardens were originally private gardens, a pleasure garden was typically a commercial endeavor, and even though open to the public, there might be an admission fee or additional costs related to individual activities. Pleasure gardens were designed for entertainment. Here, the growing middle class found a place to spend their leisure time with family, to socialize, to stroll through manicured gardens, and to be entertained by live musicians and jugglers. At about the same time that the first pleasure gardens were being opened in New York, rides began to be added, such as the carousel, or otherwise known as the merry-go-round. Outdoor concerts and fireworks displays were common. Statues decorated the park, and one even had an outdoor wax museum. Transportation to and from the pleasure gardens could be a problem. To boost ridership on evenings and weekends, some rail lines went as far as to build their own pleasure gardens, which by that time were beginning to look much more like what we would think of as an amusement park. Coney Island in Brooklyn, New York was one such park. It started out as a seaside resort, and between 1880 and World War II was the largest entertainment area in the United States. The invention of the roller coaster in the 1880s created so much interest in amusement parks that eventually three separate parks, Luna Park, Dreamland, and Steeplechase Park, plus other smaller independent parks, were all built on Coney Island. If you are enjoying this story, we would appreciate if you would hit that like button. Have you noticed in these photos that it seems like everyone is wearing their best clothes, their Sunday best? Let me know in the comments down below what you think of that dressy, formal look compared to the decidedly more casual approach we usually see today. And I thank you. It wasn't just Coney Island that was popular. All across the nation, amusement parks were springing up, some large, some small, and the people were loving it. At the same time the amusement parks were becoming increasingly popular, the invention of electricity extended the hours an amusement park could be open, plus the lights added magic to the scenes. Electricity and other new technology made additional and creative rides and attractions possible too. With the advent of industrialization, some people had more leisure time than ever before. And while county and other regional fairs were still very popular, the competition was on for the biggest and best World's Fair. The 1893 Columbian Exposition, also known as the Chicago World's Fair, gave us so many things that are still a part of our culture today. I'll give you a link up here for our ever-growing playlist about those. But as relates to this story, adjacent to the fairgrounds, there was a mile-long drive, originally called the Midway Plaisance, which is another way of saying it was a pleasant drive that connected Jackson Park to Washington Park. For the 1893 fair, the entire length was packed with food vendors, games, exhibits, and rides. The name was informally shortened to the Midway, and that's still a term we use today for a carnival area that includes food vendors and rides and games. The focus of the Chicago Fair's Midway, and for many people the highlight of the entire fair, was the Ferris wheel. It absolutely dominated the skyline. Up here and down below in the comments, I'll give you a link for another History Heights story that is solely devoted to the Ferris wheel. I think you'll like it. Amusement parks, whether big or small, continued their popularity well into the 1920s. People flocked to experience the thrills and see the wonders that the amusement parks provided. Then the culture began to change. People had more opportunity for entertainment with things like the movie industry, and they traveled more because of cars. Then came the economic hardships from the Great Depression, and that made it difficult or even impossible for many families to be able to afford a trip to an amusement park. After that came World War II, and the money and resources went into the war effort, not carnival rides. Some estimates are that during this time, 3 out of every 4 amusement parks were closed. But then, after the war, all those GIs came home and the baby boom began. Along with all those kids came a growing economy and a hope for a future. The era of Kiddieland had arrived. The original Kiddieland was the brainchild of Arthur Fritz of Melrose Park, Illinois. He started in 1929 with just a few pony rides, and in the years that followed, other amusements were added. Kiddieland was the first amusement park designed with small children in mind with its smaller rides and attractions. Many similar amusement parks for children began to appear after that, but the one I know best was in Galesburg, Illinois, so that's the one I'm going to tell you about now. It's been fun for me to visit with friends and hear their recollections for that time too, so you'll hear about some of those. It opened in the 1950s as the Galesburg Amusement Park, but we all called it Kiddieland. When the summer sky lit up with that revolving spotlight, everyone knew it meant Kiddieland was open for business. I was mesmerized by the way that light moved. Dina, Mark, Penny, and others mentioned that spotlight as one of their strongest memories of Kiddieland. Karen wondered if the parents groaned as the kids squealed and begged whenever it lit up the sky. And I would bet at least some of them did. Tickets were purchased for rides, and for most of the nearly 20 years of operation, those tickets were just 10 cents. Kiddieland was the place to go for summer fun. Rosemary family went on Sunday nights after church. Belinda reminded us that following the annual Gates Rubber Company picnic, they would all go to Kiddieland, where the entire park had been reserved for their private party. It was a very popular destination for birthday parties, too. one of mine included. And of course, there were wonderful concessions with cotton candy, snow cones, and popcorn. Everyone had their favorite rides. The swings were the favorite of Kim and Karen, and Jean recalls losing a shoe during the ride. I understand. I was always afraid my glasses would fly off. There was a Ferris wheel, on the small side as Ferris wheels go, and I knew that the designer of that great Ferris wheel was born in Galesburg, just like me. I always made my companions promise to not rock the basket during the ride, and I hovered between terrified and furious when just as we reached the top of that wheel, they inevitably did it anyway. Rex and Bonnie loved the bump-em cars, which we all called bumper cars. It was a summer rite of passage to finally be tall enough to drive one of those cars. Randy said the first headache he can recall came from the bumper cars. It could be a rough ride. The miniature train that ran around the park was a favorite of Tom, April, Terry, and Karen. The engine is currently owned by the Galesburg Historical Society and is being restored. There was a carousel too, and that black horse was the one I always wanted to ride. My personal favorite was the tilt-a-whirl, which Terry's family and others called the tubs. Being on that ride with my dad, with lots of hugs and giggles, is one of my dearest childhood memories. By the time the Kiddieland boom was fading away, the new kid in town was the theme park. It's easy to see the similarities between the Columbian Exposition and exhibitions like Buffalo Bill's Wild West and today's marvels like Disney, Universal, Six Flags, and others. Many people still go to amusement parks or midways not only to be entertained, but to recapture a glimpse of their childhood, if only for a fleeting moment, or to connect with their children or grandchildren through a shared experience. I admit it, I sometimes miss those childhood pre-technology Kiddieland days. But while we can learn from the past, we don't live there. Go be awesome today. Make your own history. Stick around for more great stories like this one about the Ferris wheel.